Hey there, friends. Aloha from Hawaii. I am coming to you today from the big island of Hawaii and taking a little break here from some of our family festivities and vacation to do an interview for the Global Glory Tracers. And I'm so excited. Actually, today I'm going to be doing a special interview with my mom, Maria Lazo. She is going to be sharing with us a little bit more about Italian culture. And if you're new around here, our family recently started a membership program called Global Glory Chasers. And basically what we're about is helping you to be able to travel and to be able to join us on some adventures learning about different cultures. And so I am very excited to have my mom join us here in just a couple of minutes. She's going to be joining. So if you can see me, Mom, you can just request to join with that little plus sign in the bottom corner. And I'll be looking to see if you're on here as well. But just to let people know a little bit more about how the membership works. Each month, we focus on a different country and culture. And that country then is the place that we are going to travel with you. We're going to take you with us. And we love the idea of being able to travel, but we also recognize that it's hard to travel, whether that's because of your finances or because of other circumstances, or as we all learned in 2020, that was the situation during the pandemic, that a lot of things were closed down. And so that's why we started the Global Glory Chasers membership as just a fun way that we could take individuals and families on excursions with us. You get these resources each month so you can watch movies, you can make some recipes from that culture, maybe you can watch some YouTube videos that teach you how to dance, and then our focus is being able to let you learn about that culture. So this month, for the month of June, and I see my mom is here with me on IG Live, we have been focusing on Italy, and we've been taking our Global Glory Chasers members to Italy. We have shared some secret family recipes, some great resources, some kids books and music, and today our featured interview is with my mom, Maria Lazo, and we're going to talk a little bit about Italian culture and cultural identity. So I just wanted to say welcome. I see that you're on.
Hi, it's good to be here. Yes, thank you.
Yay for technology that is working.
Yes.
Because normally I would be in the same city with my mom in Fresno, California, but right now we are on our vacation. So we're in Kona, Big Island, and Mom is home in Central California. She was with me last week in Hawaii. So I'm so glad that you're here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Good. Well, I just want to send a quick shout out to some of our friends who are watching live. I see that Night Howells is with us, and Cindy, my friend Sarah Wood, and Judy Morrow. I'm so glad you're here. And we have some other friends joining live on Instagram, and perhaps some of you are watching this later on IG TV or on YouTube. I'm also going to be posting on YouTube. So feel free to say hello in the comments. And as we're just kicking this off, I'm going to ask all of you, what is your favorite Italian food? If you could type it in the comments. I know we have a lot of Italian food lovers here. And one of the wonderful things about Italian food is that it's become quite universal. No matter what country you live in, there's probably a local restaurant that serves up some Italian food. We're going to be talking about food and culture. And I want to start by asking you, Mom, if you would share a little bit more about your family of origin and the story of how your family immigrated to the U.S. from Italy.
Okay, sure. I'd love to do that. All of my grandparents immigrated to the United States in the early 1900s. They came through Ellis Island in New York, and they eventually settled in West Virginia. They worked the coal mines there in West Virginia. So my grandpa Jacinto on my dad's side teamed up with his brother after several years and opened up a general store there. Um, they used to give credit to some of the people who had difficulty making ends meet on the wages that were paid by the coal mines. And unfortunately, that didn't go over very well with certain people in the town. Frankly, like many cultures have experienced here, there was a very strong prejudice against the Italians. And so one night, the general store was burned to the ground. Um, they went back to working in the coal mines again. You know, they still had to support their families. And, you know, it took many, many years for things to change there as far as feelings and attitudes were concerned. But when Henry Ford opened up his factories in Detroit, Michigan, and the factories began to grow and became very lucrative. There were many jobs that were available, and my dad and his family, all of our relatives, or I shouldn't say all, but many of our relatives did end up going to Detroit and getting jobs there. In fact, my own father retired from Ford Motor Company after 35 years of working for them. He worked on the assembly line and then became a foreman. He had hopes of going to college when he was younger, but he grew up in a family of 10 children, so they really couldn't afford that. He did instill, though, in all of us the strong value of education, and we did. My brother and I each went to college then and graduated. Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing a little bit of the family history there. And for friends who are just joining us, I see a few who've hopped on. We are doing a Global Glory Chasers interview today with my mom, Maria Lazo, and she was just sharing a little bit about her family of origin and the story of immigrating to the United States, and then kind of landing in Detroit, Michigan, where a lot of our family was. Now, I'm going to just follow up with one of the favorite things that we do in our family is that we have a family reunion every couple of years. And we get together with our cousins and our aunts and our uncles from all over the country. And so it's interesting because we now have sort of pockets of family that live in different parts of the country. Can you help me just highlight what are some of those areas where our family has scattered in the U.S.?
Okay. Well, of course, there are still many who are living in Detroit because we had relocated there. And so we probably have the majority, let's say the largest group of relatives who live there. Then there were a few different families who moved down to Dallas, to the area in Dallas. And my own brother took his family there after a couple of my uncles took their families down there. So we have Dallas. Then we have some people in Colorado, in the Denver area. We have, of course, a few families, several families actually here in California, not just in Fresno, but also in Southern California, in the LA area.
Yes.
And Cleveland. Cleveland is another area that we have several. And there are a few who have gone to like New Hampshire or Florida or a few other places like that. But I would say that those are the hubs.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I want to ask for some of the people who are viewing us live today, tell us about your family. Is there a section in the United States, or even if you're outside of the US, where your family originated or was part of a community? I know there's a lot of different immigrant communities that tend to land and then, build up that community together. So there was this strong Italian community in Detroit that my mom was mentioning,
Yes.
But then it's sort of scattered across the US. So feel free to type in the chat if you want to share a little bit about your own cultural history of where your family landed. And then, Mom, I'm going to ask you if you could share a little bit more about how you have explored your own cultural identity kind of through the years. What are some of the ways that you have explored that cultural identity?
Well, when my siblings and I were growing up, my parents and relatives always put a strong emphasis on family gatherings, so and activities. So we would have picnics a couple of times a year. Those picnics are really what inspired the family reunions, because when people scattered, when we would get together and visit in Detroit, people would say, "Oh, how we miss the picnics." And so uh, when when we got this idea to have family reunions, we made sure that every family reunion would have a family picnic included in it. Okay,
Oh
so
yeah.
that was one big thing. And then my parents always took us to visit grandparents, to celebrate holidays and special occasions with relatives and friends. And then that would include things like food and games, stories that would be about the culture. Now, later, when I got married, and my husband and I were first married, I would say it was during the first year of marriage that we signed up for a class. We were living in San Jose, California, a class at San Jose State on Italian heritage. It was just a fun adult education class. And my husband wanted to learn more about Italian culture. And of course, I was always up for learning more about it. So we took that together. That helped us to learn more. Finally, when I was teaching in Chicago for a number of years, I was given free rein to create a social studies curriculum on cultures of the world. Now, that included several different countries, but I also included Italy in that, and I was able to research more and explore more about Italian culture then. I even took a trip with my husband. It was a very short one to Europe that included a few days in Rome, when we were able to learn more about it then. So those were some of the different ways that I was able to find out more about my cultural identity.
Well, I love that. And I really appreciate that you mentioned your husband, my dad, Doug, who actually joined you in taking that class about Italian culture. And since you are coming from two different cultures, from a biracial marriage, him making that effort to learn and to travel with you and to learn about your culture, I know is something that was very important in your marriage. And you reciprocally have spent a lot of time learning about his cultural background as well, the
Yeah,
Filipinos and
yeah.
Chinese and background that we have. So I think that's really important. And, honestly, kind of a fun fact for our listeners today. I actually in fourth grade got to be in my mom's social studies class. She wasn't my homeroom teacher, but I went to her for social studies. So I got to be part of that kind of cultures of the world study that she did, that she mentioned. And as I think back about it now, it's kind of the seed that was planted in my heart, that all these years later, now that we're getting to do this Global Glory Chaser membership program together, very similar to what you did in fourth grade years ago, and just being able to have people explore their cultural identity. So I wanted to ask you maybe a little bit harder, a deeper question. Raising kids, my brother and me, and then my sister Caron, so three kids who are from biracial background. What was it like to raise multiracial kids, and how were you intentional about teaching us about those different cultural backgrounds?
Well, beginning in high school for me, I um, began to see the value of just embracing people of different racial and cultural backgrounds. It just brought me much joy. I was on the student council and was at one point the representative for the American Field Service, which was the cultural exchange, the foreign exchange students. And so I had several opportunities to plan events where people from different countries came together who were uh, placed in school in the high schools in Detroit. And so that started me out in being interested in that. Well, then by the time I got married and started having children, I married somebody of a different racial background and cultural background. I just felt like it was important to teach all of you that this was not in any way a disadvantage. In fact, it was quite an advantage to have a biracial, bicultural background, multicultural, really. Um, so I just taught you from the very beginning, and taught your siblings that that was very special. It was very special to have those kinds of backgrounds, and I tried to teach you that you were unique because of that. So I did things like, we emphasize things like, again, spending time with grandparents, even though we were not living in the same city with them. We made a point of visiting often and having them come and visit, of hearing their stories and sharing those stories. Then in our own family, we cooked a lot of food of the different cultures. We went to restaurants where we would taste those things, and we excited, and it seemed to work. So, and it seemed to work not just to get excited about your culture, but to treasure. All right, can you hear me? Uh,
Yeah, the internet is struggling a little bit, but I do hear you, and I love how you
all
are
right.
so intentional with that. And honestly, I don't think it was really until I was in college that I recognized myself as a minority, because as I was growing up, you emphasized so much that, being of a multiracial background, being a person of color, like there was a value to that. And like you said, an advantage. Sometimes I use the word superpower, which I know is not your language, it's mine, but that there's kind of a superpower in being from a multiracial family and having these experiences from many different cultures, and then even having the opportunity then to be a bridge across different cultures as well. So I want to kind of change gears a little bit here, although I think it's related. One of the values that I know is important to you and is a high value, especially in Italian culture, is the value of hospitality. And a lot of times that manifests itself through food and through gathering, as you mentioned before. But I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit more about that idea of hospitality and why it was important to you and your family.
Okay, as I was growing up, um, my parents always had an open door policy where people could drop in and visit anytime. And we felt the same way with our relatives and friends, to be able to drop in anytime. Um, and when we dropped in, or I should say when they dropped in particular, um, it we my parents always felt, and it was part of their Italian culture. I'm sure other cultures do this as well, but we always wanted to be able to serve them some food, and not just serve them food, but have plenty of food. Now, this has influenced all my life. I am still not very good at estimating how much food to have, to cook and have. You'd think I would learn this by now, but but it was so instilled in me that you have to have an abundance, because if you were to
Mm-hmm.
run out of food, that would be a terrible. so so I tend to overcook and overplan how much food to have for people. Now, part of that is just show our love. That's how we show our love toward other people. It's to show our graciousness. It's to show them that that we really care about them, and that that's just so much part of our culture. The other thing would be to offer a place to stay. That's part of our heritage too. To just make sure that that they know that they could. So I've always made sure that in any house that we've lived in, we've either had a guest room, or if that wasn't practical for us as our family was growing up, to be able to relocate children, or have a fold out couch or something where guests could feel comfortable. So.
I love those examples. And I think about my grandma Sarah, who is my mom's, well, actually stepmom, but she lived in Detroit. And so she was one of the people that we would visit frequently. My grandpa passed away when I was in elementary school, but for many years we visited Grandma Sarah, and she always had something that she was pulling out of the refrigerator. And it wasn't just like a little snack, but it was a full meal. There was pasta sauce and there was eggplant parmesan. And she always had these, meats and cheeses, which now we would make it fancy and call it charcuterie. But, back in those days, she had her little bowls filled with the olives and the cheeses and the pepperoni sticks. And it was always amazing to me, the abundance of food that she would set out on the table, no matter when we arrived. And I see also that you have that similar value, Mom, and I think I've taken that on as well, of just a desire to love people through food.
Yeah.
I'd like to contend that there's not just 5 love languages, but maybe there's 6, and the 6th love language is food. So let's talk a little bit more about Italian food too. I know we have lots of people who own restaurants in our family or have done catering through the years, but what about for you? What's your favorite Italian dish to make? And can you share any little tips or tricks about making that dish?
Well, now see, that is a very hard one to answer because there are so many dishes. I think, I would narrow it down to 2, and that would be, for a main dish, it would be something that involves my pasta sauce. We always called it spaghetti sauce, even though it wasn't always used on spaghetti. And pizza cookies, because I'm known for my pizza cookies. But as I think about it, the pizza cookies, you have to have a special iron for making them. Not everybody is going to have that necessarily. I will describe them. They're the type of cookies that are very thin, and they're made on an iron that's like a waffle iron, and the iron itself has just much more shallow etchings in it that make a special pattern that looks like a snowflake. Many people do enjoy those, but the dish that I am probably known for the most is making the pasta sauce with meatballs. And then we use that on a variety of different types of pasta, or when we're making manicotti, stuffed shells, ravioli, lasagna, all those different kinds of things. And then when I make my sauce, I always put meatballs in it. I put a little bit of meat in it toward the end, and then I put meatballs. Actually, I will tell you that I learned not that long ago from a cousin of mine who is in the restaurant business. I asked her, I said, Marianne, how is it that you're able to cook your pasta with meat sauce and not have some of that meat stick to the bottom? I would have that happen at times. And she'd say, well, you don't put that meat in till toward the end, like the last 20 minutes. So there's a little tip. The last 20 minutes of cooking the sauce, put the meat in if you're going to make that meat sauce. So that's thick. As far as the meatballs, I do put that in early on because those have to cook a long time, and I don't brown them first. I learned from my mother, we don't put it in the We don't brown them first. We just form those meatballs and drop sauce. I make sure I go around in a circle all around the edge of the pan, and then I make another circle inside and so forth, so they're not all sticking together. After they've been cooking for 10 minutes or so, then very gently turn the sauce around, stir it a bit so that the meatballs can not stick to the bottom, and then I'll stir it occasionally through the cooking process.
Well, I love it.
I
Those
know
are
that
some
you have published, yeah,
those are some great tips. I know we
you've
have a little
published.
bit of a delay.
Yes, we do. Okay, I was just going to say you've published the recipe. I'm very free about giving recipes. I know a lot of people say, "Oh no, this secret recipe." Well, I'm sorry. I life is too short. Why keep secrets? So so I think it's better to just share those recipes, and I know I get them from you. So.
Well, friends, I will let you know that Nana Maria, and you've heard these special tips from Nana Maria herself, these recipes are a part of the Global Glory Chasers for this month. And today's the last day. If you wanted to sign up for that, you can hop over to brownicity.com and check that out. But there's some great tips that you hear here from my mom, and she shared her sauce recipe. We shared the meatball recipe that she mentioned. We also shared manicotti, which is stuffed shells, and we shared my recipe for tiramisu. So if you're interested in some of those recipes, I would love it if you could check those out. And like she said, we love to share the recipes. We love people being able to make our family special sauce. But our time is starting to run out here, Mom. This has been so fun. So I have a final, just kind of quick question for you. I could ask lots of questions, of course, but part of the idea of Global Glory Chasers is traveling the world from the comfort of home. And so I have to ask you, if you could travel anywhere in the country with your kids and grandkids and money wasn't an issue, where would you go? Can you hear me?
You know what? I lost the last part of what you were saying, but I heard you say if I could travel anywhere with my kids. So I'm assuming you're saying where would that be? Okay.
Yes.
And I I do have a dream to someday be able to travel to Italy with my children and grandchildren. That would just bless me so much. I I went to Italy, as I mentioned earlier, just one time to Rome for just a few days. Because of the nature of that trip, we weren't able to stay longer. But I would love to go to more cities. I'd love to go to Rome again, but more cities, including down to Calabria, which is southern Italy, in the toe of the boot, where my family is from. So that's what I would love to be able to do someday, if the Lord makes that possible.
I love it. Well, thanks for sharing and for giving us a little bit of a window into your own family story and Italian culture. And I'm so glad that you could be with me here today. Honored to have you on this IG Live interview. I see that more friends have joined us, and I just wanted to let you know my friend Lucretia Berry is here in the comments. She did type the link. So if you'd like to learn more about Global Glory Chasers and what we're up to, and feel free to share this interview. We would love it if you would pass it on to family and friends here on Instagram. So thanks, Mom. So good to see you.
Okay.
Appreciate you joining me today.
Okay. Thank you for inviting. Love you.